Mr. Hugo Fernandes, thank you very much for taking time off to be with us. You're the director of CNC, better known as the Centro Nacional Chega. Our topic today is about the memory, the education, and of course, peace building within Timor Leste. Now, maybe you can explain to us what the CNC is, but also to push that further, it was created in 2016 to carry out recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation process. Now, what has been achieved so far and what still needs to be done? But maybe we can start with what the CNC is for my friends back home in Malaysia.
Yeah. Thank you, Jared, and it's a pleasure to have you here today. Centro Nacional Chega is a public institute, maybe in other countries known as Institute of Memory. And since its establishment, CNC has been working on at least three main areas. One is education, second one is on reconciliation, and the third one is on reparation. And so far, what we have been working, not only by Centro Chega, but in partnership with other line ministries, we have able to reintegrate the Timor-Leste history into the curriculum of teaching, which is start to be taught at the primary, secondary, and also higher education. That's on the education. On reconciliation, we have been doing a lot of facilitation within the community. Because when you talk about reconciliation in Timor-Leste context, you talk about reconciliation internally, because our conflict starts internal conflict here. And then we have also reconciliation with Timorese of those who still in Indonesia. And the third one, of course, reconciliation in a political level, which is between Timor-Leste and other countries, who during 24 years have been also have some contribution into what happened in Timor-Leste. And the third one, on reparation, we have been working with victims, providing a lot of what we call here is intermediate reparative measures, which is...
I'd like to come back to that, but I'd just like to go back to what you're talking about. You say a lot of work is being done in schools. Now, can you give us a simple example of what is taught in schools about this? And why do you do it? Do you do it to remind people you need to know where you're coming from, to know where you're going? Or what's this education with regards to in primary and secondary?
If we go back to what was declared back in year 1998, when no one even think that by 1999, the former Indonesian president, Mr. Habibie, will announce that there will be a referendum. In 1998, the Timorese leaders who established this national umbrella resistance movement, which is called Conselho Nacional Resistência Timorense, or National Council of Timorese Resistance in Portugal, they came up with a very visionary statement, which is clearly stated in Timor-Leste's independence, children and youth should be the center of our development. The education should be focused on peace, justice, and equality, so that we can build the Timor-Leste from the ruins of the war. So that is the visions of Timor-Leste, even a year before President Habibie announced that Indonesia will organize within UN auspice the referendum. So based on that, what we do here is education in terms of human rights, history, is to reflect on what is the leaders say, but with no intention to create hate, but to learn from what happened in the past so we cannot repeat, particularly because we start the war by ourselves. Before Indonesian invasion, there was a civil war, and then that's also a lot of human atrocities happen.
Right, so when these things are being taught in schools, how do kids receive this? Are they receptive to learning things like this? You know, do they really want to know, or it's something they have to do?
The second concern that we have is that if we don't this history and human rights in schools, those kids will learn from their parents. And that will have a different narrative. And that will be very much based on individual experience. And that's what I think the leaders didn't want to see. You can learn from your family, your parents, but at least you have to come up with a common narrative about what happened. So that is important to teach history, human rights as a part of our identity. And that the kids pretty much learn. Especially we visit the museums, and every day we have students coming up to learn about what happened in the past.
Right. Now, CNC works closely with survivors of human rights, or at least that's what we understand from our time in Dili. How do you support them today, or how does the CNC support them today, whether in recognition, their services, their dignity, or simply just what they went through, the horrible times that they've gone through?
So, Centro Nacional Chega established because previously we have two truth commissions. The Internal Truth and Reconciliation Commission from 2001 to 2005, which came up with a final report called Chega. Chega means enough.
Chega means enough.
Chega means enough. And then we have bilateral truth commission between Indonesia and Timor Leste, which is called the Truth and Friendship Commission, which is Indonesia and Timor Leste tried to talk about what happened in the past. And that commission worked from 2005 to 2008, came up with a report called From Memory to Hope. Mm-hmm. So both truth commissions issued 225 recommendations. And among them is about reparation. So how the state take the responsibility to what we call victims of the war. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, we work with Victim Association in Timor Leste. We work with former political prisoners, and also we work with different youth organizations in Timor. So in reparations, we talk about individual and also collective one. So in that regard, we implement some of very direct reparation, but also collective one to the community. Centro Chega is national-based institutions. We don't have branches in countrysides. So in order to implement those recommendations in regard to reparations, we have to create partnerships. So first partners is Victim Association and former political prisoner association. Mm-hmm.
So if you expand a little bit, have it in little provinces and towns, what can be done there?
So we have introduced what we call here an integrated memorialization program. So in one of the components is reparations. So we start with registering the victims. And
registering the victims,
because during the two truth commissions, there is only up to 10,000 victims that we registered. So since our establishment in 2017, one of the things that we do is registering the victims.
Right.
And then looking at what they most needed. Because our mandate is to focus on the most vulnerable one, because not all the victims is still in that vulnerability conditions. Mm-hmm. So we looking at those who are very, very much in need. Mm-hmm. Economically and also from their health conditions. Right. So we provide health care, mental health care, but also physical health care. We provide economic incentive for income generations. We build houses as well for victims. But also we do a lot of commemorations in order, as what GERARD was asking, how to recognize the victims. So we do a lot of commemorations, even up to the community level. So then people can be recognized, people can feel dignified, and also be valued again by the community.
Right. I'd like to move into a very important part for me. And my journey is, when we talk about conflict in a country, we're talking about conflict from the outside. But if you look at most of the problems in most countries, and I'm not generalizing here, at least for the people in ASEAN, how important it is to look at Timor-Leste's journey and to understand that conflict can begin on the inside too. If there's a leadership, you need to listen to the leadership whether you like it or not, because the end goal is to ensure economic prosperity, the well-being of people, so on and so forth. Now, Malaysia and ASEAN are looking towards Timor-Leste's journey. What lessons, and I really want you to think about this before we talk about this, what lessons from your reconciliation process are most valuable for the rest of us? And you can also speak in English and Malay, because I want for everyone to understand what we're talking about here.
Well, first, that we put very much emphasis on reconciliation, because everyone recognize here, semua orang tahu konflik di Timor Leste itu dimulai dengan konflik internal. But also orang harus tahu bahwa konflik di Timor Leste karena ada pengaruh geopolitik waktu itu. Yeah. Just giving two examples. United States was defeated in Indochina. 10 years before 1975, there was atrocities in Indonesia. And that's for one reason. And konflik in Timor, itu juga ada pengaruh dari situ. So, oleh sebab itu, important bahwa reconciliation itu looking at also what will be the effect to the region. Ya. Timor Leste akan bergabung dengan ASEAN. So lessons yang paling penting bahwa Timor Leste mungkin bisa memberikan adalah the reconciliation process. We see that's not important only internally, but also that can be something that Timor Leste can contribute. Looking at the conflict is not internally, but also it has some impact.
Right. So with what you all have gone through, what I notice is patience. Yeah. I see a very patient people. I was standing in line to buy something the other day, and someone was behind me, and I took a long while. The person didn't get angry, nor did he get upset, and he said, "Thank you, sir." And I understand where this is coming from. People have learned to be patient. Now, what can you teach all of us in ASEAN countries and around the world about holding each other's hand and being patient, regardless what race you come from, regardless what religion you come from, and how important is that for you in Timor-Leste?
Of course, karena when you reflect what happened after 25 years now, since if you count it from 1999, things that happened before that, it cannot be seen that someone in Timor can accept it. So from the beginning, like the leaders said this, if we can accept what happens during these 24 years, from 75 to 1999 with patience, so how come we are not ready to moving with that spirit? I think that's the lessons that Timor-Leste learned from our own experience, that being patient, being respect to others, like what we respect each other in the periods of time. Now remember that if you talk about what happened in Timor, we have crisis after we have independence. We have crisis in 2004, 2006, 2008. But remember that not single foreigners who were in Timor at the time been targeted. Despite of they know
no foreigner was targeted.
No even single foreigner has been targeted. We have crisis in 2004, 2006, 2008, and all foreigners can free walk here and not be targeted. Even that we know that our conflict from 75 to 1999 somehow have some external factors that lead into that conflict.
Right. Now, knowing what you know today and wanting to share it with the rest of the region, the rest of the bloc, or the ASEAN bloc to be exacting, do you think of collaboration with NGOs, universities, even cultural exchanges to tell stories, just so we have a finger on the pulse? We know, okay, this has happened in Timor. We don't want this to happen. We don't want our people to fight with each other due to outside influences. Do you work with other NGOs? Yeah,
in Timor-Leste, our partner is definitely the NGOs, because we have to work with them. They even exist and they do that work before the Centro Nacional Chega was established. regionally, we also work with different organizations in the regions. One of our international advisory board is coming from Malaysia, Professor Ying Ho. She is a professor of history at Malayan University. So creating network in the region is very important. We have members from Malaysia, we have from Indonesia, we have from Philippines, and also from Cambodia. So this is the 4th out of 6 member, out of 9 international advisory board member appointed by His Excellency Prime Minister. So he really, because Centro Nacional Chega is work under Prime Minister's office, and I report to Prime Minister, he said that please find those individuals in this country to be a member. So then they can share what happened in their country, but also they can share what happened in Timor Leste to the country. So regionally, just this year, we work with 2 universities in Indonesia in doing research and do publication on collective memory. In Centro Nacional Chega, we see conflict is not only, by the end, it's not only the one win and one loser, but conflict is also left the victims in both sides.
Right. For those who are just joining us in the conversation, Centro Nacional Chega. Chega means enough. Just explain that to us.
So, when the Commission of Truth and Reconciliation Commission finalized the report, I was the managing editor of the report. And
you were the managing editor.
I was the managing editor of the final report. And the Commission said that what will be the title of the report. And then we said that let's reflect on what we have listened to the victims and for the people of what happened in Timor Leste. And most of the victims that we listened, and they said that enough. Enough with conflict, political conflict, enough with human rights violation. So Chega means enough, that post-Timor Leste independence, there should no more political conflict that lead to the human rights violation.
Right.
So that's why in 2017, when Prime Minister Rui Maria de Araújo established these institutions, and we say that let's name it National Center of Chega, right? National Center of things that should be stopped.
Right.
So Chega means enough.
Right.
But also we have the second name is From Memory to Hope. Memory to Hope is the title of final report of the Truth and Friendship Commission between Timor Leste and Indonesia. So we reflect on that enough, but let's build memory, let's build hopes from our memory. So that is the full name of Centro Nacional Chega, from memory to hope.
Right. Something just came to mind. You know, you talk about human rights now. When we talk about press freedom, you guys are high up there. National Press Index, and congratulations, firstly. Now, how do you want to maintain that? How do you want to make sure there's a separation with regards to the executive and the press, and that the press people are allowed to do the work? Does your center, do you in any way intersect with that?
Yeah, we have annually here an award to peace journalism that we work with Press Council. So we promote it, because if you look at the history of Timor-Leste, the journalist has been the first to die and also the last to die. We start in 1975, the 5 Australian, UK, and New Zealand journalists were killed even before the invasion. But also in 1999, 3 journalists were also killed in Timor. So we see that, and that's why in one of the recommendations of the Chega report is to continue to promote the press freedom, but also to provide them with some value. And that's why every year we organize peace journalism.
So the killing of the 3 journalists back in 1999, if I remember my history well, tells us that the rest of the world started knowing what was happening, and then it gained more traction. Am I right?
Yeah, but also remember the turning point of Timor-Leste resistance was happening in 1991, when also the international journalists was here, and they were able to record what happened in the Santa Cruz, now well known as the Santa Cruz Massacre. So then you can see how the role and the importance of journalism, particularly the journalists, in Timor-Leste history, starting from 1975, 1991, and 1999. So that's bring the Timor Leste into the international arena about what happened in Timor Leste.
Right. I know you've been rather honest with me up until this point, and this question is about Timor joining ASEAN. What challenges remain in building a culture of peace and human rights across the society here in Timor?
So what we try to do at its region is Centro Nacional Chega become one of the expert members of what we know, maybe you don't, the TJAN, Transitional Justice Asian Network, where I normally, and we organize...
I apologize, I haven't read about that yet.
We organize regional conference here. And also, in regard to that collective memory, we organize now, since 2 years ago, with the request from our president, His Excellency Ramos Harta, we have the border festival in our district's border with Indonesia, where we bring Timorese and Indonesian to come and then talk about what happened in the past. So in that regard, I think Timor-Leste's accession to ASEAN, what is the main challenge is also continue to share that experience. Of course, the second one is we will be sitting with Indonesia to introduce this collective memory into the Indonesia history of curriculum of teaching, but also to share that experience into the region. Aware that in some of the
on paper looks good, but
yeah.
On the ground, is there political will for this?
Well, at least in this year, we launched 2 books in Indonesia on collective memories and 1 documentary film, which is very well accepted by the Indonesian public. And also we organized a very big seminar with one of the Indonesia leading think tank, BRIN, Badan Riset dan Inovasi Nasional, which is, I think, in that process, we can see the openness to talk about what happened in the past. But always we put it in the spirit of reconciliation, in the spirit that what happened with the conflict in the past, that will be leave some victims in both sides. If we can start with that, and then we can have better open conversations about what happened in the past. Not to put in who is the winners, who is the loser, but to put that conflicts always brings us lesson to learn. And if we put it in that, I have confidence that Timor-Leste can share that into the region as well.
To end our conversation today, and before I go back to Kuala Lumpur, think about this, yeah, before I ask you this question. What does real reconciliation look like, or should look like in everyday life? Just so we all understand what we're talking about. We always talk about reconciliate here, talk about this, forgiveness, but we don't know what it looks like in real life. Can you give us a little bit of a glimpse or picture of what it should look like?
If I give you an example of our collective narrative. In 10 years before now, if you talk about things that in 2015, to include some narrative of internal conflict into our curriculum, you have to go through a lot of debates. Now, that narrative can be accepted into the history of teaching. So that's one thing, that even we have various perspectives about what happened in the past, but it's now well accepted into the curriculum. In terms of victims, previously it's really difficult for Timorese to accept that there are also some victims from other parts who, I can say, that supported the Indonesia. Now they come together and form this victim association. So that's reconciliation, that the victim now can accept each other. Say that you're a victim from this side, I'm a victim from this side. Let's sit together and join it. So that's really practical things that happen. We do commemorations at the community level, at the village level. We are not only commemorating atrocities committed by one side. We're commemorating atrocities from both sides. So that's in the grassroots level. You can see how people testify things that committed even by the volunteer, our armed forces, openly, and then it was accepted. Just last week, I was in Baucau, in one of the districts, and we start to talk about reconciliations of things, that atrocities that happened during the period of resistance, armed resistance. People openly talk about that. So I think if you look at things that happen from education, from what happened at the community level, that's what reconciliation is for us. It's real. You can see how people talk to each other in these public events.
With that, the director of the CNC, or to be exacting, Centro Nacional Chega. Centro Nacional, I'm sure you'd be able to figure that out. But Chega means enough. And in Timor Leste, the word that goes around every day is, it is enough. Mr. HUGO Fernandes, thank you very much for taking time off to be with us. So HUGO in Timor Leste is pronounced as HUGO, yeah? Mr. HUGO Fernandes, thank you so much.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.